We certainly can't say we didn't see it coming, but the time has finally come for Gronkowski to retire. He might not have the longevity that some of these other great tight ends do, but I think it's fair to say that in his prime, he could be argued to be the best tight end to ever play. One of the things that made the Gronkowski-Brady connection so valuable for so many years is the fact that if you play zone coverage against the Patriots, Brady can pick that apart. But if you play man coverage, then that leaves Gronkowski in a one-on-one matchup, which is just a complete disaster for opposing defenses. I thought it would be fun to go back and break down some of Gronkowski's best plays over the years as being a Patriot. One of the games that I remembered was his 3-touchdown game against Chicago, and really all 3 touchdowns were pretty unique. Like, this was the first one, and one thing you're going to want to take a notice is that there is going to be a man in motion, and since the Bear follows him, this is not going to allow Brady to know that it is man coverage, and as I just mentioned, no one can beat Gronkowski in one-on-one coverage, so that means it's a good situation for the Patriots. Those are the routes that the receivers to Tom Brady's left will be running, and that's going to be Gronkowski's route right there. That's going to be the defensive back who's in charge of covering Gronkowski. And take a look at what he's going to do here. Right after the ball is snapped, he's going to try to initiate some contact with Gronkowski. Basically what he's going to try to do is put his right hand on Gronkowski's right shoulder, and this in theory would push Gronkowski back enough that Gronkowski wouldn't be able to get too far ahead of him and still be able to run up and get into play. However, if you take a look at what happens here, Gronkowski says, "You're a defensive back, I'm one of the biggest guys in the field, so I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen." He puts his hand around that defensive back's hand, and now there's no way for that defensive back to just slow Gronkowski down, and he's able to gain a step on his assigned man. And that's all he needs. Brady's not going to miss those throws too often, and Gronk's not the kind of guy who's going to drop those passes too often, and this really was too easy for the Patriots almost. I mean, all it takes is that one slight move for Gronkowski, and that's all he needs. There was also this next play, and it kind of became a staple over the years for the New England Patriots, and it's as follows. If you take a look, there's going to be man coverage on the bottom half of the screen, and so what Gronkowski's going to do is run a simple fade route in that direction. This certainly isn't Patriots specific. You see teams do this all the time, as it is a great play since it is relatively low risk, and there is a chance of you getting a touchdown if you have a tall receiver. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't get much bigger than Gronkowski. As of right now, his assigned man is going to try to create contact once again on that initial line, and what Gronkowski kind of does is says, okay, try to create the contact. Once again, he's going to use his arms to not allow that defender to latch on to him. He's able to gain a little bit of separation and get open, but more importantly, he's now able to turn his head around, and at this point, it's game over. If the intended receiver's head is turned around and the defensive back who's guarding him isn't, typically that's great news for an offense, but it's always great news when that intended receiver is Rob Gronkowski. Once again, Brady makes a great throw, as you're probably going to see on all these plays. Brady makes a lot of great throws, and Gronkowski is able to leap up and make the catch. It's one of those unique situations where he's big enough that you throw it up, he can leap up and make the catch, but he's also strong enough that if you try to knock him out of bounds, you really can't because he is so big. And of course, he's also fast enough, which allows him to create that initial separation and allows him to get open in the first place. And speaking of his quickness, this next play and what was the 3rd touchdown out of the game was probably the best example of that. It's a cover 1 hole, and that's going to be his route, and typically on a route like this, it's pretty simple. All you do is wait until he gets past that initial zone coverage in the middle of the field, and then hit him once he gets past there. Now what you're going to see is he is going up one-on-one against a defensive back, but take a look at what the defensive back is doing. He has his back turned towards that top half of the screen, and basically what he's saying is, I'm not going to let you get to the top half of the screen. He knows he has zone coverage in the bottom half of the screen, and so his sole goal is to not allow Gronkowski to get to the top half of the screen. It seems pretty simple, and it makes a lot of sense, because typically, and especially against a tight end, if you just make sure that he doesn't get to the top half of the screen, he has to run to the middle of the field, and by the time he would get past those guys who are in coverage in the middle of the field, it would be too late because tight ends typically don't run that fast. The defender is actually going to create contact with Gronkowski to really make sure Gronk has a harder time to get to the top half of the screen. But again, since he's going to the bottom half of the screen, this isn't going to work out too well, and now Gronkowski is able to get open down the field, and Brady makes a great pass to hit him. At this point, since it is a cover 1, there is one safety back, and that's, the safety on this play. That's the guy who's supposed to make sure that this play doesn't end up being a disaster. But take a look at what happened. The safety runs a good angle and closes the gap down, but also at this point, it's worth mentioning that all the momentum from that safety is going to the bottom half of the screen. So Gronkowski is going to use momentum to his advantage, and he gets his right hand out, and he's basically going to shove that defender over to the bottom half of the screen. If you know all the momentum is going in one direction, why not take advantage of that and have the momentum continue to go in that direction? That allows him to get past that defender and get into the end zone for a touchdown. Really, one of the ways that Gronkowski was so deadly throughout the years for the Patriots was in the red zone. All tight ends are valuable in the red zone, and especially when you have a clear-cut first ballot Hall of Fame tight end in the red zone, it just makes things so easy. Like on this play, for example, once again, it's one-on-one coverage on the outside, and so what would you expect here? Well, you expect another fade route. As I mentioned earlier, and as I showed earlier, it's a great low-risk play that can result in a lot of touchdowns, especially when you have a big, fast tight end like Rob Gronkowski. If you take a look, Gronkowski is going to take a step in that direction, which is now going to make the defensive back think that it could be a pass in that direction. However, instead, Gronkowski can then just cut in, and it's an easy touchdown for the Patriots. I mean, this is just too easy. That's a tough play for a defensive back to make anyways, but it's nearly impossible against a guy like Gronkowski, who has such great footwork that he can also make you think that he's going one way and then actually go the other way. Really, that was a tool that was always in Gronkowski's tool belt, is the slant to the inside in the red zone situation. Like on this play, that actually is what he's going to be running, but what I think is really interesting is look at how far away that Colts defender is playing. Not far away deep, but far away to the inside of the field. I mean, he has another couple of steps, probably actually a full yard inside the field from where Gronkowski is. This is basically him daring Gronkowski to run to the top half of the screen in a fade route and daring Brady to try to throw it there, as he feels confident in his abilities to be able to knock the ball away if that is what ends up happening. And so once again, what Gronkowski is going to do is basically just fake as it was going up in that direction. This forces the Colt to sort of run towards Gronkowski as he's going to now try to create contact, but that's a big mistake as Gronkowski can now just cut in. But as things turn out, actually, he still ends up playing pretty good coverage. I mean, he doesn't allow too much separation, and he is playing pretty good coverage against Gronkowski. I mean, typically, you'd think on a play like this, you'd want to throw the ball right there, and this means that he could easily put his hand in the way and knock the ball away, so this should be good coverage, right? Well, then again, there's the other problem, is the fact that Gronkowski is a really big guy. He ends up extending windows greatly, and so what Brady's going to do is instead of trying to hit Gronkowski in his chest, he's going to throw the ball out and make Gronkowski have to make sort of a diving grab to make the catch. Not fully diving, but he's going to have to extend his arms. But the reason he does that is because he trusts Gronkowski can very easily extend his arms and make those types of catches. That is what happens, and it leads to yet another Brady to Gronkowski touchdown. Also, you might have noticed that those last two plays were both from playoff games. We all know he can get it done in the regular season, but he can absolutely get it done in the playoffs as well. And the fact of the matter is, I actually thought two of his best playoff performances were both in losses. And so I'm going to make sure I bring both of those up, as I want to make sure they don't get lost in history of how well he played. And this one is a great example. It's Super Bowl 52, and really he played so well in that game. Like on this play, for example, it was a cover one hole, and at first he's going to fake as though that's going to be the route that he's going to be running. However, he's then instead going to actually cut in, which is going to allow him to hopefully get a lot more open. This is a tough play, of course, because he can't cut too far in, because there are going to be Eagles playing zone right in the middle of that field. So he can't cut too far in. He has to make sure he stays close enough to the outside, but he still has to get enough in that he can get past that defensive back. Now, as you see, there is tight coverage, and so what Gronkowski is basically going to do is fake as it was going all the way to the sideline on the bottom half of the screen. This is going to try to get the Eagle as far to the bottom half of the screen as possible, and then he can basically just run over him and try to get some separation. It's not a ton of separation, but it's enough. Brady makes a very good throw, and Gronkowski is able to make the catch in traffic and pick up a ton of yards. And that was far from his only great play from that game. If you take a look at this play, it's going to be a cover one hole, and that's where Rob Gronkowski is on the screen. He once again has a one-on-one matchup, and it is worth noting that once again, you could expect the fade route here, as that corner of the end zone is going to be very open, and Brady could look to throw it there. But if you notice right now, there really is no way of knowing where Gronkowski is going to go. He's not giving anything away. He's doing a very good job of staying nimble, staying light on his feet, and being ready to move in any direction. The defensive back has no way of guessing where he's going to go, but naturally, he knows that there is going to be a gap in coverage in the top half of the screen, so that's where he's going to look at first. But the problem is there also is going to be a gap that's right there. Now, this is a much more narrow gap because, again, there are two Eagles in the middle of the field. However, that's actually where Rob Gronkowski is going to go, and he's able to move there so quickly that he is able to still gain enough separation that Brady's able to hit him for another touchdown. So should I say that Eagle made a mistake and shouldn't have expected the fade route? Well, not really. Back in Super Bowl 52, Gronkowski absolutely could have beat the Eagles with a fade route in the end zone. And I'll prove it with an example of Gronkowski beating the Eagles with a fade route in the end zone. It's going to be man coverage once again, and as I alluded to before, it is going to be a fade route to the bottom half of the screen. Well, I've shown a few examples of Gronkowski using his footwork to try to not really let people know where he's going and try to, fake as though he's going one way and actually go the other. But Gronkowski isn't doing that at all in this play. He's running straight to where his route's telling him to go. Because of that, it doesn't create much separation. In fact, there's almost no separation at all. Brady has nowhere else to throw it to, so he is going to end up throwing it in that direction, and as I mentioned before, this is a low-risk play, because all you have to do is throw it out of bounds to where only a receiver could catch it, and then there's only three options. Either it'll fall out of bounds incomplete, either the receiver will catch it and then not be able to get inbounds, making it incomplete, or Gronkowski can do this. Really just an insanely athletic catch, and results in yet another Gronkowski touchdown in the Super Bowl. I think a big story from that game was the Philadelphia offense, and rightly so. And I also think another big story of that game was how well Brady played, and again, rightly so. But I also felt like how well Gronkowski played did get a little bit lost in the shuffle. And as I mentioned before, there's actually two games I said that in losing efforts he played so well in, and were probably his two best games despite them being in losing efforts. Maybe best is the wrong word, but showing up when it mattered the most. And the other game I'm talking about was that AFC Championship game against the great Denver Broncos defense. This was late in the fourth quarter where the Patriots absolutely needed a scoring drive here. And Gronkowski is actually running a brilliant route on this one. This was actually a genius play call by the Patriots. He's running a go route. And okay, now I know you're thinking, wait, Jackson, what are you talking about? Have you lost your mind? How is a go route against a cover 2 man a great genius route? Well, I'll explain. If you take a look at most of these plays I've shown you, it's really about Gronkowski using his size to beat other teams. It's the fact that he can extend his arms so much, and the fact that he can make these catches in traffic that really made him so valuable, and a large part of what made him a shoo-in to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And so what are the Denver Broncos expecting here? Well, they're going to be expecting some kind of cut. They think Gronkowski will move in a certain direction, and that's when they're going to try to close that gap in coverage and make sure Brady doesn't hit that small gap in coverage because he can't hit those small windows, and Gronkowski only needs a bit of separation to get open. So even though it is cover 2 man, this actually means that a go out is a great play to run because one of those guys isn't actually playing a traditional cover 2 man type play. That Bronco right there's sole purpose is to make sure Gronkowski doesn't break to the inside of the field. They're going to accept the fact that Gronkowski could break to the outside, as it is a much more difficult angle for Brady to try to hit it through, and there still would be one-on-one coverage where they trust that their defender could try to cover Gronk. But since this is a go route, this now turns it into basically one-on-one coverage. However, now it's one-on-one coverage, but it's a deep shot down the field. And as we all know, Gronkowski is very fast and is very quick, but he definitely is the type of guy who can get outrun by a fast defensive back, right? Especially when that defensive back is Chris Harris, who's, he's done alright for himself. He's an okay player. But again, this kind of comes back to the last couple plays, where Gronkowski doesn't have to have a ton of separation, he just has to get a step. And while getting a step is no easy feat against a great defensive back, Gronkowski still is able to do it. He does get that step, Brady makes a great throw, and it leads to them being very close to the end zone. But okay, so great, you're close to the end zone, but you're not in the end zone. You're still down 8, so you need a touchdown here. Well, when you need a touchdown, typically Gronkowski's your guy, especially on a 4th down at the 4-yard line, which is what the situation is now. It is going to be man coverage, so the sole purpose of this play is to take everything away from the middle of the field and force Brady to have to throw at an awkward angle. And if you take a look, that's going to be Gronkowski's route, and it's not really the best route against this coverage. Once he does cut, he should end up getting a little bit open, however that is going to take a bit of time to develop, and quite frankly throughout this game, Brady had absolutely no time to try to let plays develop, as the Broncos defensive line was playing so good through the entire game. If you notice, at this point Gronkowski is nowhere near being open. This is actually worst case scenario for Gronkowski's route. And now to make things worse, Brady is under pressure. Brady basically just hangs it up for Gronkowski and hopes that he can make a play. However, the throw is going to be a little bit behind Gronkowski, which is kind of not a great situation. I mean, when it is desperation time, you don't want to throw a bullet pass, you do want to leave it up there a little bit longer to allow your receiver to try to get in position if they don't already have a wide open window to try to throw it to him. But since it is going to be behind him, this now means that all the momentum is going to that direction, and yet Gronkowski is still going to have to adjust his body weight while running as fast as he can and come back to the ball. There's also another defender in the area, so he has to make sure he gets the catch very quickly. He can't take the time he wants to try to make the catch, because if he takes too long to get to the ball, then the defensive back can run over and knock it away. So he has to run up to the ball, basically. But he is able to adjust his body weight. He leaps over that corner, basically, to make the grab, and it leads to a touchdown that gave the Patriots a chance to tie up the game. It really just goes to show how unstoppable Gronkowski was, even playing against one of the best defenses ever assembled. The Broncos were finally able to survive and get out of that game, but it was not easy, and a large part of the reason why it wasn't easy was because of how dominant Gronk was. There's one last play I want to talk about, and that was actually Gronkowski's last catch as a New England Patriot, and it was also the catch that led to them winning their 6th Super Bowl. What's actually pretty fascinating about this play was there's actually a little bit of confusion in the coverage coming up into this play, which kind of allowed Gronkowski to get open. The Patriots were going up against a cover 1 linebacker blitz, and it sent the man in motion to the top half of the screen, so it's worth noting, take a look at the one guy who's in coverage back. What he's going to actually do is run to the top half of the screen to play coverage against that receiver. Then another defensive back can drop back and become the safety on this play. And then a third defensive back can basically just cover who he was assigned to guard. So you're basically just rotating assignments on this play. The whole point of doing something like this is it's trying to fool the Patriots into thinking that maybe it isn't man coverage. However, if you notice, the defender who's in charge of covering that receiver who is in motion doesn't actually realize what's going on at first. He runs all the way to the other side of the screen before realizing, oh, I'm supposed to be covering Gronkowski, I have to now run back to the bottom half of the screen. This basically renders the whole idea the Rams had of rotating assignments useless, because now the Patriots still know that it is going to be man coverage, and now to have a guy out of position. One thing Gronkowski did struggle a little bit with in his later years was separation. However, if he can get separation, he can still make those catches. And since the Rams made a slight mistake at the beginning of that play, Brady makes a perfect throw, Gronkowski makes the catch, and the rest is history. I don't have a ton of preferences when it comes to sports teams. I mean, I do root for my teams, but when my teams are out, I basically just watch the sport to watch the sport. Of course, there will be players that I like and players that I don't like so much, but as a whole, I kind of just watch the sport to watch the sport. But I do think it's worth mentioning that Gronkowski is loved even by people who hate Boston sports. I mean, he's a likable guy. He really is. He's an absolutely great player. He's a surefire Hall of Famer, and he absolutely deserves it for how well he played. thanks for watching my video on Gronk retiring. It still feels weird just to say that. It is like a new world that Gronk is no longer in the league. However, if it makes you feel any better, I do have a Twitter and Instagram, so feel free to hit me up with a follow. There's absolutely no way that makes you feel any better at all, but if you feel like following me on Twitter or Instagram, just go ahead and do that, because I enjoy talking to you guys, and it's another way I can talk to you guys. So feel free to do that, or don't if you don't like social media. Either one is cool. As always, thanks for watching.